Welcome to EPG Pathshala. Dear students, today we would be discussing the implications of urbanization in India on various aspects. The learning objective of this module is the physical implications of urbanization, the social implications of urbanization, the economic implications of urbanizations, and the implications of urbanization on governance. The implications on the physical, social, and economic and governance implications are both positive and negative. When we look at the physical implications of urbanizations, as I said earlier, that there are both positive as well as negative implications. We find that the positive implications of or positive physical implications are planned development, which is manifested in the aesthetic built as well as unbuilt environments. There is better quality of life, there is increase in housing stock, there is higher level of facilities and services, better connectivity and accessibility. And as you can see, these figures show, the figure 1 shows about the environments, the unbuilt roads and the greenery. The figure 2 shows about the housing stock, figure 3 talks about or shows the facilities and services higher level, and the figure 4 shows the connectivity, better connectivity, accessibility, different modes of traffic. The negative physical implications of urbanizations are increasing population concentration and high built up density. The figure 1 shows the how compact or how highly built the increase in the built up density. Then there is also inadequate poor quality of physical infrastructure. The transportation networks, as you can see in figure 2, roads there are potholes in the roads. Then there is the mix of modes, which you can see in figure 3. The quantum of potable water is less in many cities because of too many people and less resource, which then absence of proper sanitation and waste disposal mechanisms. Then the inadequacy of higher level of social infrastructure, education and health. Then the sprawl due to haphazard physical development. Then the neglect of built heritage. One of the significant negative implications of urbanization is the sprawl, which is the haphazard physical development. Due to the sprawl or the city spreading beyond its boundaries, there is a loss of farmland, wildlife habitat, then increased pollution, demand on resources, and because the people, they reside outside the boundaries of the city due to available land and also available land at affordable prices. And there are various other reasons of sprawl, but they commute to the city. So the city has to bear the burden of the people living within the city as well as outside the city. So now there are 3 ways or 3 mechanisms of sprawl. One is a low density sprawl, which are piecemeal extensions of urban infrastructure. The ribbon sprawl, that is a concentration of development along major transport corridors, road corridors. Then leapfrog development sprawl, which is a scattered form of sprawl resulting primarily from physical limitation, that is disjointed uses interspersed with green areas. Now we come to the social implications of urbanization. Now the positive implications, positive social implications are, one is there is higher level of literacy, then increase in the life expectancy, better family health status, increase in number of females per 1,000 males, and there is increase in working population and participation of women in the workforce. Now when we see the literacy, now literacy rate is higher in urban areas than as compared to rural areas. As the bar chart shows, for both male and females, a higher literacy rate has been recorded in urban areas in both 2001 and 2011 for our country. The increase in literacy rate in urban areas is attributed to a higher level of awareness. Now, when we compare the literacy rate with that of rural areas, we find that female literacy is very low in rural areas, and the difference among the male and female is lesser in urban areas. Now, the various tables show these changes. That if you can see, the first table talks about, first bar graph talks about that from 58.7, which is rural, the literacy has gone up to 68.9, whereas the urban total literacy was from 80% as compared to less than 60% of rural literacy, as gone up to 85%. One of the positive implications, positive social implications of urbanization is increase in literacy. Now, when we look at the literacy levels in the rural as compared to urban areas, we find that the rural areas had less than 60% of literacy in 2001 as compared to 80% in urban areas, and which increased to 85% in urban areas and less than 70% in rural areas. Though both the rural areas also literacy increased, but the urban areas are much higher than the rural areas. So, and for both male and females, a higher literacy rate is recorded in urban areas as compared to the rural areas, where female literacy is very low. And the increase in literacy rate in urban areas is due to various reasons, in terms of facilities, provision of facilities which aid the increased literacy. Now, coming to the life expectancy, which is again a positive social implication, the increase in life expectancy. We find that life expectancy of both urban male and urban female population is more than the rural population, as you can see in the line graph. Now, we foresee that in urban areas the females have better life expectancy than rural areas, and it is increasing as is shown in the line graph. Now we come to one of the positive social implications of urbanization is improvement in the family health. Now, the National Family Health Survey of 2015-16 has assessed the family health in terms of few parameters, and that is good maternity and infant care, good delivery care, child immunization, vitamin A supplementation, absence of anemia in children, treatment of childhood diseases, good child feeding practices, good nutritional status of children, frequent health checkup, good awareness of health issues, and absence of gender-based violence. Now, indicators show that the family health status is better in urban areas than rural areas because of more awareness of health issues, then better accessibility to healthcare facilities, and more frequent healthcare or health checkups. Now, the next positive social implication is the number of, or is the sex ratio, which is number of females per 1,000 males. We find that there is increased sex ratio in urban areas, that is the number of females per 1000 males show an increase in urban areas, as you can see in the table and the line graph. The urban areas in 1991 had 893 females per 1000 males, which increased to 926 females per 1000 males in 2011. When we look at the child sex ratio, that is in the age group of 0 to 6 years, the number of females per 1000 males, we find that at the national level the figure is declining. 927 has come down to 914 in 2011. In rural areas also it has declined, but in urban areas the decline is not so significant and decline is less in urban areas. Now the working population and the participation of women, that is talking about the involvement or about gender equality, we find that work participation rate, which we define as the percentage of total workers to total population, we find that for males it is higher in urban areas and it is steadily increasing. In the table you can see that in urban areas the WPR, work participation rate, was 48.9 in 1991, which increased to 53.8 in 2011. Now for females the work participation rate is increasing in urban areas, whereas it has declined in rural areas, and the percentage of workers among urban women for age cohorts 20 to 49 is steadily increasing, as you can see in this table, which shows that 20 to 29 the percentage of workers in urban women were 15.1, which increased to 19.5 in 2011, and in 30 to 39 age group also there was an increase from 23.3 to 26.3, and in 40 to 49 age group 23.7 to 27. So the working age group, basically from 20 to 49, it shows steady increase in urban areas. Now the negative social implications of urbanizations is increased in migration, exclusion and lack of participation of different stakeholders in terms of age, gender, caste, differently abled in planning and development, marginalization of stakeholders, and increase in crime rate. Increased immigration is one of the negative social implications of urbanization. Now when we look at migration, we find that there are 4 types of migration which happens between urban and rural areas. One is rural to urban, second is rural to rural, third is urban to rural, and fourth is urban to urban. The statistics show that the immigration trend in India, that about 42.3 million immigrants are there in India, and of that more than 20 million people have migrated from rural to urban. So that is about 50% of migration is the rural to urban migration, which makes it the prominent or the predominant migration type. And the cause which is associated with rural to urban migration is the employment opportunities on urban centers, and at the same time lack of facilities, employment opportunities in rural areas, which causes the push factor or which leads to the push factor and the presence of employment opportunities and better facilities and services, which acts as the pull factor for migration. Urbanization also leads to exclusion, social exclusion. Now, social exclusion means exclusion of various people, of stakeholders, based on age, gender, caste, and various interest groups. So many a time in cities, the stakeholders' voices are not heard and their inputs are not taken into planning and development, and they are marginalized, which leads to social exclusion. Now, if we go by the inclusive development score or inclusivity, which is assessed by World Economic Forum report of inclusive growth and development in 2015, we find that India ranks 25 to 31 in the case of education and skills in terms of inclusion. In employment and labor, it ranks 32 out of 36. In asset building and entrepreneurship, 31 out of 38. In basic services and infrastructure, 27 out of 38. Fiscal transfers, 37 out of 38. Corruption and rents, 8 out of 38. So one can understand, or one can interpret it, that based on these indicators, we find that India does not fare too well in terms of inclusion. Now we come to the next negative social implication, which is crime rate. There have been a sustained increase in crime rate in urban areas. Now, urban areas have lesser social cohesion and a lack of informal social control. They are more feasible for or provide an environment for committing crimes. They offer opportunities for the criminals in terms of the disparity which is there in income, and due to this income disparities, thefts and crowded living conditions, there is also crimes and juvenile delinquency also. Now, in 2010, a total of 67,50,748, to be very precise, crimes were reported in India by the report of National Crime Records Bureau in 2010. The crime rate of Indian cities as compared with the crime rate of the respective domain state was generally found to be higher. The next subset is the economic implications of urbanization. As I said earlier, there are both positive as well as negative implications. Positive economic implications entail increasing employment opportunities, increasing productivity and economic growth, increasing investment in development. Now, when we discuss the increasing employment opportunities, we find that in the cities there is a growth of secondary as well as tertiary sectors vis-a-vis the reduction in the primary sector. So we find that the contribution of primary sector to GDP has declined from 51%, literally 52%, 51.88% to 13.94 or 14%, nearly 14%. But the contribution of the secondary sector has increased from 16% to 26%. But the most significant increase has been noted in terms of tertiary sector, that is 29.5 or nearly 30% to 59.9, that is 60%. So from 30% to 60%, tertiary sector has increased, which has provided more employment opportunity, which has contributed to GDP and has provided more employment opportunity to people. Urbanization has also brought in increasing productivity and economic growth as one of the positive economic implications. Urban areas have steadily contributed to the GDP, and this figure shows the steady increase in contribution, or the steady increase in the urban share of GDP. There is also increasing investment in development, more budgetary outlays, investments are there in the urban sector, and it has been increasing steadily. Our various plans, outlays have provided or has assigned more amount of money for the urban sector. Now, the negative economic implications include growth of informal sector, increased cost of living, and food insecurity. We find that there is growth in the informal sector, which is a negative economic implication of urbanization. Urban areas have high competition for jobs. There are more people and less jobs, and so therefore few of the people get into or have formal jobs or formal employment, and the rest who are poor residents work in more insecure and in the informal sector. If we see statistics, we find that 2009-10 workers in the informal sector accounted for 17% of the total rural workforce and nearly 50% of the urban workforce. So we can understand from this that in urban areas, the informal sector is a major employment source for many people. In urban areas, there is also increased cost of living, and also which is increasing day by day. And this is also one of the negative economic implications. The average monthly per capita consumption expenditure for all economic classes is more in urban areas, as per the National Sample Survey in 2009-10. The urban expenditure per day has been more in urban areas across time and is increasing steadily, as one can see from the comparison of the rural and urban expense or rural and urban expenditure per day. Now we come to the governance implication or the implications of urbanization on governance. The positive implication pertains to better governance mechanisms. Cities have better governance structures, mechanisms. Then funds are there for urban local bodies. Then there is administrative reforms in urban areas. One of the positive implications of urbanization on governance is better governance mechanism in the cities. There is an administrative structure, there are various organizations, there is with well identified roles and responsibilities, there are laws, policies and programs for urban development. Urban local body is one of the bodies or one of the organizations which are responsible for planned development as per the constitutional amendment, that is 74th constitutional amendment. And urban local bodies are generally or comprised of municipal corporations, or they can be municipal corporations, municipalities and nagar panchayats, depending upon the size of the settlement, that is the population size of the settlements. The higher the size, the urban local bodies are corporations. The lower the size, they are municipalities. Now, this figure shows the administrative structure of an urban local body. Now, there is a lot of potential of administrative reforms in urban areas. There is a constant increase of functions of public administration, then there are the increasing demands of society. So administrative reforms therefore is a complex rebuilding of existing administration or modernizing or improvising of existing procedures and processes. So there is a potential of continual improvement is there. There was a committee on prevention of corruption, that is a Santhanam committee appointed by the government of India in 1960, which gave its reports with recommendations in 1962, and based on this the Central Vigilance Commission was set up. So administrative reforms have been there and can continue depending upon the needs of the society, depending upon the changing times. The negative implications of urbanization on governance is multiplicity of authorities and lack of coordinated efforts, lack of institutional capabilities, poor accountability and transparency. Though there is an administrative structure and organizations, we find that there is no coordination or lack of coordination between the organizations. There is overlapping of powers, functions and also jurisdictions. Same area can be governed by various authorities, or there is a conflict between the authorities over certain issues. Then poor institutional capabilities in the sense that skilled manpower is less. There is a gap between what is required and what is available in terms of skills, and also there is poor accountability and transparency. Urban local bodies and many other bodies, administrative bodies or organizations in urban areas face problems or related to financial capabilities, procedural delays, and they lack proper implementation and monitoring mechanisms. And thus, the targets and the achievements differ. There is always a time lag between the time-bound targets and actual achievements. There is always a difference between the budgetary outlays and the actual expenditure, because projects are not implemented on time. So finally, we summarize. Today we have learned the implications of urbanization on various aspects, that is the physical aspect, physical implications, on the social aspects, social implications, economic aspects, that is economic implications, and implications of urbanization on governance. So both the positive and the negative aspects we have learned today. Thank you.